I'm Josh Corcoran, and these are CJSW Stories. CJSW Stories is a show about the people behind the mic and behind the scenes sharing their stories of making great radio. Our guest today is Molly Neufeld, former volunteer coordinator and current host of Freeverse. My first question for Molly was, what brought you to CJSW?
I actually, even though I'm the volunteer coordinator here, I never volunteered at CJSW prior to working here. I volunteered at a bunch of other places on campus, but it's funny, I started as the volunteer coordinator and actually never volunteered here before.
Very interesting, and that kind of leads into my next question is, what made you want to become the volunteer coordinator?
My work experience led me to working further with volunteers, and then I saw this job posting pop up. I've always kind of followed the CJSW Instagram just to see what cool stuff they were doing. And they posted the job on the CJSW Instagram story, and I was like, I like music, CJSW is cool, and I really like working with volunteers, working with people. So I'll, give it my best shot, and here we are.
And what sort of cool things have you discovered by working at CJSW and hanging out in the community? What's something that jumps to your mind?
I started in such a weird year because I started in January of 2021. January 11th was my first day. So it was right in the middle of the pandemic. It was both weird and a really nice start because I was able to meet all of the programmers as they were coming in. And I think the thing that did stick out to me, and it sounds corny, but it's true, is everyone was so nice and took the time to stop and talk to me and be like, hey, welcome, not just to hey, welcome to this new job. People are like, welcome to CJSW. And there's this sense of it's more than just this desk you're sitting in, welcome to this community. And I just have really vivid memories of programmers making that time to tell me about why they care about it here, even how they got involved. So the people really make the place. And I think over the past year, I have been very thankful to dip my fingers into a lot of different things, whether that's learning audio production, learning about live sound, seeing bands come in, learning how to host live radio, and just seeing, for me, I've only been here for a year, but I've made so many connections and met so many people and had so many experiences. So it's, corny as it is really the people that make the place and make the community of CJSW.
And what sort of advice would you give to people that are listening that might want to come volunteer and meet you in person?
First of all, everyone here is super friendly. And while, COVID, things open and close, just coming by, you don't have to come by with, a specific question or a specific need or thing. You can just come by and be like, hey, I just want to see what this place is about. Can you show me around? And we all love chatting with people, meeting new people, and just seeing the faces that walk through. So literally just coming here and making your way here and coming to the space is, I think, that first thing, if you're able to. And, it's true for any volunteering commitment, but I think, especially here is how much you put into it is how much you get out of it. So in my year that I've been here, the volunteers who want to come in once a week, they want to come in once a month, whether that's, even if they don't do anything, they just come in and they talk to other people and they meet other folks in the CJSW community. They glean something from that. They get it back. Maybe, your end goal doesn't have to be hosting a radio program. Your end goal can just be being a part of this community. And any prospective volunteers or people who are interested, just reaching out and saying hi. There's a bunch of welcoming people. I like to think myself, I'm very friendly. I like talking to people. I like meeting new people. I wouldn't be here if I didn't like doing that. If you're really passionate about it, just putting in whatever you can handle, it'll reflect that you care and you'll get more out of it.
So on a personal level, it really matters to you.
I came to CJSW with no experience with live music. I play the piano, but I don't I've never been in a band. I don't know anything about performing or live music. I don't know anything about sound in general. And one of our long-term volunteers, Darren Powell, who hosts Tombstone After Dark, approached us, and our music director specifically, and was like, hey, I know live sessions have been on pause, but I can help train any volunteers who are interested in learning about live sound. And myself and 3 other staff members were able to go through a series of workshops and work with Darren, who has been super integral to live sessions in the station in general, and train us and take the time. And it's now I've been able to tech a number of live bands and learn a lot about it and meet a lot of people because of it. And it's still an ongoing thing. And I look forward to it every time I get to hear about, a live musician coming in, a band, what have you. And that's something I came here being like, this is going to be a job where I work with people, but largely an administrative job, being here has totally transformed my expectations of what this job has been. It's been so cool. Something where I had literally zero. I never even touched a soundboard before. I didn't know what an XLR cable was. I didn't know there were different kinds of microphones. And now I'm able to have a very, basic level skill that's, I get to work with these really cool live bands and help make them sound great and have them broadcast into the community. And that has been, I just remember like in the summertime and being able to do that, on Monday afternoons or Tuesday afternoons, whenever we did it. I look forward to it so much. And just seeing all of us learning at different paces and what other people picked up, what they were good at, what they had an ear for, what I could learn from them. And it was, I'm still looking forward to it. It's very cool whenever I get to help out with those. And that's been, I think, the most exciting part of my time here, besides all the other people and all the other things and events. That has been something that really stands out for me.
You also host your own radio show. What's the story behind that?
When I applied for a job and got the job here, it wasn't with any expectation that I would be really involved with radio. I knew it was a radio station, so I'd have to, do that to some extent, but I didn't apply with the expectation or thought of ever hosting a radio show. And then I started, working here, and I was presented with the opportunity to be show trained, and I was able to work with Jess Arcand, who hosts Main Condition, and I learned a lot from her. And I remember finishing show training. Her old show slot actually opened up, and Tyra, our programming director, was like, do you want to continue hosting radio? You can have this slot because Jess's slot is moving to a different time. And I just didn't know what kind of music I would start with. So I was like, what's the grid missing? And she's like, well, we can always use a little bit more folk music. I love me some Joni Mitchell. Like I can, I love me some Neil Young. Like I can kind of get into some folk music. And I started hosting a folk and country show, and it's cool. I'll listen back to old episodes, and you just get better the more you listen to yourself, even though it's really hard. But I've learned so much about music, specifically Canadian music, from other programmers here, from other volunteers, from doing just a ton of research, from the ability to speak to musicians. I've been able to interview some local musicians on my show. That's been super cool. So it sort of fell into my lap, so to speak, and it's very different than anything I ever would have thought of hosting. So I'm still a bit of a radio rookie, but I've learned a lot, and it's been really cool. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to host it. As a volunteer coming to the station, I think there's this perception, a lot of people come knowing that you can be a radio host, and they want to go from point A, which is walking in the door, to point B, which is how do I host a radio show? And there is a structure in place for the volunteers where that is their goal, and we do want that. And, all of our over 110 programs are volunteer hosted, so we do need that. But volunteering is very much choose your own adventure, and you don't have to host a radio show. We have volunteers who are the faces of events, or the face of CJSW at events. So they're effectively ambassadors of the station. Maybe they have no aspirations to really do anything directly related to, hands-on radio, but they want to be the face of CJSW, and they understand the community and the importance that CJSW is really kind of this last bastion of independent media, at least in Calgary. And, that's a pretty cool thing, and it's a responsibility to be able to represent us at events. There's people who do that. All of our ads and interviews, special segments, creative audio, All of that is volunteer produced. So all of the wacky little bits, stingers, sound bites that you hear, those are from the creative brains of all of our volunteers, all the way from like conception, thinking about it, to physically sitting down, recording it, editing it, putting in music, putting in sound effects, to getting it on air and hearing it. So all of that's produced by volunteers, and we have really talented staff members who sit down and train volunteers so they can become talented volunteers. Our music department has become, like, it's always been really robust, but I think it's been cool for me in my time to see the work that Helen's been doing, especially we have a lot of really talented music reviewers, people who like every kind of genre, and I think honing writing in a way that isn't just academic, because we get a lot of student volunteers. It's a great creative outlet. You get to listen to music, learn a lot about not only, genres, but record labels, and just like hone your listening ear. Like I said, the opportunity to be trained to tech live sound, being able to DJ at events it's really cool for me. I had never seen anyone DJ with vinyl before, which is, probably indicating I'm a little bit younger, so I'd never seen that before. And I was like, oh, this is awesome, being able to see people learn how to DJ with records. That's really fascinating. We have our giant record library, so there's a certain amount of volunteer power that goes into upkeep, keeping it organized, keeping it clean, and making sure that doesn't fall into disrepair, because, it's people don't use libraries as much anymore. And it's this really cool relic that still needs volunteer love given to it. Yeah, like I said, obviously show hosting is a volunteer opportunity. You tune in, there's like a whole schwack of different shows, not only the hour, 2 hour, 3 hours that people are hosting. Behind the scenes, they're putting in anywhere from 5 to 15 hours of prep for their show, and that's totally unpaid. People just do that because they really care about it. And yeah, learning those skills, how to prep for a show and host a show. Our podcasting, we've been able to onboard some really cool podcasts and strengthen them, flesh them out, see some really cool opportunities arise. I know our Writer's Block podcast this year kind of got a bit of a reinvention. And that's been really cool to see volunteers step up to the plate with that. There's so many, like I said, choose your own adventure. There's something for everybody at CJSW. When I started working here, I was so intent on being like, I want to learn this job and be good at this job. But I was like, this is so much more than just a job where you sit at a desk. You interact with so many different people. Our youngest volunteer is 11, and our oldest volunteer, I don't even know how old they are, probably be rude to ask. But there's people from like every walk of life. And it's just being here and being the volunteer coordinator and working with 300 plus volunteers, as well as community members, donors, things like that. That was something that I was like, oh, this isn't just like a job. It's like more than that. It's like working with a community of people. And that was something I think I learned after about four months. I think it really started settling in what this place is. And the more you talk to people in volunteer orientations, I have a quick little timeline of the history of the station, but I always say if you come into the station, you should talk to the other programmers, because we have people, our longest running show has been on air for 38, 39 years now. They can tell you a lot more about the history of the station than really I can. I just have a little nutshell of it, but it's cool learning about the history, reading those old Vox magazines, hearing about, even before we were on the FM dial, and learning about the history of CJSW and how we've got to the point where we're at now, where it's, we are like a beacon in the community, and how we started from, a little kernel and grew into what it is today. I think that like comprehending the history of CJSW was a lot more than just reading from the website. It's living it and talking to people and seeing those programmers come through the door every day who care about it. That helped me comprehend the scope of CJSW, I think.
My guest today was Molly Neufeld. Thanks for listening to CJSW Stories. I'm Josh Corcoran.